call to order. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. I'll start with the first set of minutes, March 4th of 2025. Are there any amendments or revisions to these minutes? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve? Made by Commissioner Barberi, seconded by Commissioner Exter. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Next is the March 5th, 2025 minutes. Are there any edits or amendments to these minutes? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Coop, seconded by Commissioner Lanfear. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Next item on the agenda is the appointment of the planning director. For those of you, for all of us here, as we know, Mr. Pizzullo resigned his post in January. For the present, Beth Ashman has been the acting planning director. We posted a position. We received a qualified applicant in Ms. Ashman. The subcommittee consisting of myself, Vice Chairman Coop, Commissioner Lanfear interviewed Ms. Ashman. We made a positive we would like to make a positive recommendation to this commission for her appointment as planning director. Is there any of my colleagues in the subcommittee that have anything to add to this in any manner? Okay. That is the item. I will make a motion to appoint Ms. Ashman as our planning director. Seconded by Commissioner Mancini. Is there any discussion on the appointment of Ms. Ashman as our planning director? Seeing none, all those in support of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. The ayes have it. Congratulations, Ms. Ashman, on the next stage in your journey in life.
Thank you very much. I look forward to working with you.
All right. Extension requests. We have on our agenda Brood Awakenings, which is seeking an extension until May 7th of 2026. Is the applicant present to request, or someone on behalf of the applicant, excuse me, present to request this extension?
Yes, good evening. Is this on top? Good evening, Mr. President, members of the Planning Commission. For the record, my name is Robert Murray. I'm an attorney with offices at 21 Garden City Drive in Cranston. I'm here tonight on behalf of Brood Awakenings. You'll recall last May, this commission approved the preliminary plan for the minor land development project on Oakland Avenue. Since that time, my client has been working towards the necessary approvals to implement the preliminary plan approval so that we can seek a final plan, make a final plan submission. Unlike the normal major land developments or minor subdivisions, those approvals for minor land developments in this case is only for 1 year. Sorry, for major land developments for 2 years, and you can get additional approval. So this is a minor land development. The approval is only good for 1 year. My client has taken advantage of the approval you gave last year. We have raised the building. We've obtained approval from Providence Water. We've obtained the physical alteration permit from Rhode Island DOT. We are just waiting for our final sewer approval, and I expect shortly thereafter construction will commence. So if in order, I'd ask the commission to extend this for 1 additional year, even though I don't think we'll need it, and with an approval date of May 7th, 2026. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Is there anyone here who'd like to make public comment on this extension? Mr. Lima, is there anybody online who would like to make public comment on this extension?
There is no public comment online.
Okay. Did my fellow commissioners have any questions for Mr. Murray at this time? Seeing none, a motion to grant the extension for 1 year would be in order. The motion for an extension of 1 year made by Commissioner Lanfear. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Exter. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed signify by saying nay. The ayes have it. Next on the item is the, under subdivisions and land development projects, is Cranston Print Works. Due to the complexity of this project, Mr. Murray, could you, as the applicant, make the presentation? And I know you have your experts here and witnesses.
Sure. Good evening again. For the record, Robert Murray for appearing this evening on behalf of the developer and owner of the Cranston Print Works at 1381 Cranston Street. The actual owner is CPW Apartments LLC and CPW True Storage LLC. We are here tonight on a preliminary plan submission. This property is one that has had great interest in the community for its potential redevelopment, and Brady Sullivan is an experienced mill redeveloper and is looking forward to bringing this project to fruition. With me this evening are several representatives. You're going to hear from some of them or all of them as necessary. But I just want to introduce Mr. Chris Lewis, who's the Director of Architecture and Design for Brady Sullivan Properties. Thomas Remus, who is our project construction manager on site and very familiar with the actual plans for the construction, and Michael Malinowski, PE of Allen and Majors Associates out of Manchester, New Hampshire. He is our project engineer and has been working over the last several years on the necessary approvals to advance this project. Just, I know most of the members who are here this evening were here a year ago, but just for the record, I'd like just to recap that we have a master plan approval that was actually done on April 6th, 2023. Last month, you extended it for an additional year, even though we had submitted for this preliminary approval. At the time of the master plan, there was the concept laid out of rehabilitating the existing mill structure buildings for apartments with some self-storage and some additional new self-storage at the, I believe, the south end of the property. The Planning Commission was receptive to Brady Sullivan's plans at that time, and you did approve the master plan. It was conditional on first that we obtain a zone change that had been pending at the time from the city council, because this property was and is zoned M1 industrial. The multifamily housing component was not, at the time of the master plan approval, a permitted use. And so we had pending for later hearing in April before the city council a rezone of this property to retain the M1 uses, but with certain conditions that would enable the construction of a multifamily housing on the project, which is a strength of Brady Sullivan's projects throughout Rhode Island on numerous mill redevelopments. The zone change was approved by the city council on April 24th, and with conditions that were acceptable at the time in terms of density, intensity regulations. Most importantly, it allowed for approval up to 150 multifamily apartments. And the plan that's before you this evening conforms with that approval. What's before you this evening, initially at the master plan, we had identified a range up to 129 apartments. In the intervening months since we were last here on this project, one of the buildings was deemed to be structurally deficient and unsafe, and that building is actually in the process of being raised today, and it's one closest to the channel, and it will. we will reduce the amount that was shown in the master plan by 29 units. And what's before you this evening is a preliminary plan showing 100 units. That is not to say at some point, theoretically, Brady Sullivan could come back looking for the additional 50 units allowed under the zoning. But in speaking to Shane Brady, the principal, I don't think he has any plans to do that. He's satisfied with the plans that are before you this evening. But I just want to note that the city council did approve up to 150 units. In the intervening months since the zone change in the master plan, Mr. Malinowski's firm has worked with DEM, and we did obtain a freshwater wetlands permit, and it's in your package. It was dated May 8th, 2024. We have received approval from Veolia Water and the Public Works Department for the sewer design, and that approval letter is dated October 31st, 2024. And lastly, we obtained from the Providence Water Supply Board approval, and that was in December 4th, 2024. So as you can see, after the master plan approval, this developer and any applicant has to go forward with implementing what's necessary to get back to this stage. I should note that on December 14th of this year, the Development Plan Review Committee did review the plans that are before you this evening and recommended and approved the plans at the technical review level. We are here tonight. Mr. Malinowski is going to come up and present the plans from his perspective. We'll be happy to answer any questions. Mr. Lewis, Mr. Rems are here tonight to supplement any questions that either Mr. Malinowski and I can answer. At the end of our presentation, I'm obviously going to seek your positive approval for this project. We have reviewed the staff report. I know at some point Jonas will speak to that. I do have a few comments on the staff report, but we appreciate, first of all, congratulate Beth on her new appointment and Jonas and Grace for their assistance to myself and the developer on this project. They've been nothing but supportive and trying to help us get to this point this evening. So on behalf of Shane Brady and his company, I want to thank the planning staff for their cooperation and assistance. With that, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, with your permission, I'm going to ask Mr. Malinowski to come up and he can work through some of the technical aspects of the project that's before you.
You can proceed.
Good evening. Michael Malinowski with Allen & Major Associates. As Mr. Murray had mentioned, we have been working through the site development of this property. As you can see, we've got two existing buildings that are remaining. Those were the historic mill buildings that are being renovated. The first one closest to the canal will have self-storage on the lower levels and conversion of residential units up above. There is a second existing building that is directly across from the fire station. That is a two-story building that will also be converted to residential units as well. In addition to that, there are 7 buildings being proposed, one closest to on the corner of Cranston and Dyer. That'll be a two-story climate-controlled self-storage building, which we have submitted preliminary architectural plans for as part of the package. And then 6 additional buildings in the grassed area closest to the dam and the pond that will be one-story drive-up. Those will be non-climate controlled. As the project involves an increase in pavement surfaces, we have provided stormwater mitigation that has been reviewed and approved by DEM, in addition to the freshwater wetlands permit. We do have jurisdictional areas on the property, which include the Pocasset River, which is encased in a man-made canal that runs along the top of the page, as well as a pocketed wetland that sort of sits in the middle. It is bounded by several existing retaining walls. It is actually an old foundation from when the mill was in its heyday and is since collected water and now is has some wet areas. All of those areas are to be protected. There's no proposed development within that area. In addition to that, the area that is around the existing buildings, the limits of pavement will be maintained or reduced in those areas to help further mitigate stormwater issues on the property. To support the project, there is proposed new water and new sanitary sewer that is being proposed, both of which have been reviewed by Veolia and Providence Water. They have provided conditional approval based on the letters that are supported. The outstanding items are just relative to construction-related items, street opening, permits, when the contractor is actually involved to make the connections within the road. The project, as Mr. Murray had mentioned, incorporates 100 residential units. As that, we have 256 parking spaces as shown on the property, where 212 are required. And most of those parking spaces are within the confines of existing pavement areas around the front of the building closest to the river. And then we have some areas that are behind the proposed building, the self-storage on the corner of Cranston and in the back there. We do have an extensive landscape plan that was provided as part of this. I'm not sure if we can jump to that plan. Okay, sorry, Jonas, thank you. While Jonas is pulling that up, we do have extensive landscaping around the buildings to provide amenity space for the residents. We are also providing new street trees to sort of provide a buffer from any of the construction that is happening in that area, as well as the residential neighbors along the back towards where the new drive-up self-storage is being proposed. We do have a copy of the staff report, which does call out for some review of the existing species that are in those areas. We do have some red maples. A lot of the trees that were proposed will grow a bit taller. So we have to review those to sort of mitigate some of that, because there are some existing power lines in that area. So there are some specific species that the power company is going to want to see in those areas. So we can definitely correct that. We also will review the landscaping adjacent to both sides of the proposed driveways to make sure that we have clear visible sight lines along those.
Oh, to be more direct. Thank you.
There we go. Is that better? Yeah. Sorry, sir. Be happy to answer any questions that the board and commission may have.
Do any of my colleagues have any questions for Mr. Malakowski at this time? Mr. Malakowski, I'll ask a question.
Yes, sir.
Are you handle questions regarding stormwater runoff?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I reviewed your report. First of all, I'll start out is I'm always concerned about building anything new on a floodplain, period. And I believe this is on a floodplain of some nature, correct?
Correct.
Okay. What I understand is that your plan will increase the impervious surface of this area, correct?
Yes.
Now, I do see on page 8 of the report, it indicates you anticipate a reduction in stormwater runoff, correct?
Correct. We are providing, that is being derived through infiltration practices that are being provided outside of the flood area. So just behind the proposed 2-story storage building within the confines of the existing parking lot. We are providing infiltration. Currently, there's no infiltration practices on the property now. There's also very limited collection of stormwater. The vast majority of the stormwater runs from Dyer Ave right out to Pocasset River. So as part of the proposed work, we are providing new collection and infrastructure to collect and treat the stormwater that is in the area. We are also mitigating the additional stormwater. If Jonas has that as part of the slide, the stormwater plan. So behind the 6 units, we have a infiltration system that is being proposed to mitigate the stormwater. That area is outside of the floodplain. We also have a secondary infiltration system that is being proposed behind the building that is on the corner of Dyer and Cranston. So that is how we get a reduction in the overall stormwater.
And that's,
And
go ahead, sorry.
and the removal of, but the removal of the building increases the flood capacity within that area. So we do have an overall increase in sort of area for flood, should there be a flood incident.
Okay. Again, this is, I've learned as I go along, your stormwater runoff report, this thing is reviewed by DEM, correct?
Correct.
All right, and so they've already signed off on this? Or
Yes, they have.
Okay. And just for my own purposes, it talks about on page 8, the change and decreases, their percentages and there's quantities. Is there any way for you to kind of explain to a layman like myself just how significant of a change? Will people notice the change, the amount of reduction in runoff in this area?
The average layperson would notice a difference in what you see in the day-to-day activities out there. It's more, it is a very technical report, and the average person's not going to notice a difference.
Okay, but the bottom line is you're not making it worse, you're making it better, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Malinowski? If I pronounce it wrong, I apologize.
Malinowski.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
I don't know if you want, the plans kind of speak for themselves. I don't know if the commission, it would be helpful to have an explanation exactly where the apartments are going, where the storage is going in the buildings, or any of that explanation. We are, obviously, we're not putting any residential units in the floodplain. But if that would be helpful, I could have a discussion of that, or if there are any other questions right now. But the commission has seen these plans in various facets over the last year, both for our zoning board application and other things.
The only question I have is about traffic, but I'll ask my colleagues. Does anyone want to hear some testimony about the storage locations, apartment locations, any of that nature? If you do, we can bring them up. Otherwise, I'll just ask some questions about traffic. I'll just ask my questions about
Sure.
traffic. I know you prefer the applicant did a traffic study back in 2023. First thing I'm going to ask is, to the best of your knowledge, has been no material change in the traffic situation there since 2023?
The long short answer is that we had engaged Vanas and Associates to do traffic work. The city at the time, Mr. Pizzullo, they engaged PAR Corporations to do a peer review. There were multiple comments back and forth, and I believe at the end, those were discussed at the master plan level. I don't have anyone from Vanas tonight, but we'll try and answer any questions. The only significant, the only change that I would note is that the information that the traffic studies were predicated on were 129 apartments, and now we're only proposing 100. So less apartments, less traffic is
Sure.
my lawyerly way of saying it, but
I agree
I'll be
with
happy
you.
to try and answer any questions.
Yeah, I agree with the general analysis. Less apartments, less traffic. I I just had a follow-up, and you maybe not be able to answer this, Mr. Murray, but and I'm trying to remember how I asked this last time, but on
Eloquently.
um, there was a question I asked, or I tried to, about on page 7 of the response. There was a statement that under existing conditions, Cranston Street eastbound approach is shown to be at capacity. And this is the March 30th, 2023 Vanassi Associates report. Page 5 of 7. And there's an existing issue in the intersection, all that. Is now we're at preliminary plan stage. Is there any further information you can provide us about this, how this issue is being addressed in any way? I should phrase it differently. How the approval of the Printworks project will affect this in any way, this issue of the eastbound approach being at capacity?
Well, I think there was the general takeaway for me at the time of the master plan and the discussion with the various consultants was that first, there needs to be some work on the signalization at Dyer and Cranston Street. That both consultants I thought felt that, and I believe at the time Mr. Bernardo, the Public Works Director, who obviously has a background in traffic, spoke to there may be some deficiencies in the signal box, and first it might need to be upgraded, and secondly, the timing of the actual intersection needed to be studied. But I always took that to mean not necessarily today, but more operationally when construction was underway and the activity increased on property. So I don't know if that's an answer to your question, but it was acknowledged that at that time that eastbound was an issue, but I think they felt that if the timing of the signal was improved and analyzed, that would go towards helping that situation.
Right. And I believe like whatever costs were associated with improving that situation, like for example, with the signal, those are costs that I believe you as the applicant were indicating that should be the city's responsibility since it's already at capacity. Is that kind of the position?
Yeah, I mean, we first of all, there's a lot of things going on in the Knightsville, Cranston Street area.
Yeah.
Mr. Correo, I know, is not here right now, but given his background in DOT, he's very familiar with traffic. I've spoken about this project. I think that, in fact, one of the staff recommendations was about a crosswalk, and Mr. Correo said the city would take care of that. I think that the opportunity the city has for this gateway to Knightsville with funding and the extension of Phase 3 of Knightsville, I think there'll be opportunities for funding to be available for that. But to answer your question, this is a public-private partnership, and we hope that we'll do our part. And if the city could do theirs, that would be terrific.
Yes, yes. That actually brings me to my next question regarding to traffic. I did notice on the draft report by the staff, and the staff I don't know if the staff really has to address it because it came from Public Works. There was originally a condition of the crosswalk west of the fire station shall be removed. And that was deleted from the final report. Could you explain to me why the applicant that should not be a condition of the report of the approval?
Sure. I I know Jonas can speak to this, but when I saw the staff report, we discussed it. That is clearly in the public right of way. If it's deemed that crosswalk is not desirable or necessary, I thought the city was more appropriate and suitable to remove it. In consultation, Jonas can enlighten you the board more. I think Mr. Correo, I think they recharacterized that issue and felt that in consultation with the Knightsville project, that the city would take care of that. And that's why it was removed as a condition.
Okay, thank you. Last couple of questions that I have that doesn't deal with traffic. One's a simple one. This project's been in the works now for a couple of years. When do you think, just a guess, like when building permits would be pulled to actually complete this project?
Well, Mr. Remus can speak to the actual construction process. Based on my conversation with Mr. Brady yesterday, he'd like to have his permits next Monday. So
I understand.
we will be, if we get through this evening in a positive way, we'll be looking to file for final approval and hopefully handle it administratively, which will then, at a previous meeting, Mr. Peichel and Building Inspection Department, we discussed in all likelihood, we're going to go on a dual track of building permit for the apartments, building permit for the self-storage. But it will all commence and be worked on at the same time. So I can't give you a specific start date, but if you've been by the site as recently as today, that building 101 is half down. That had to be removed. So they're moving along, and they've been doing other work to prep for the actual construction. So if you want Mr. Remus to talk more about it, I'd be happy to have him come up.
No, it's a general question, and I'll explain why I asked in a second. Is a lot of legislation is going around and policies are being implemented by the state, and sometimes the date when they look at when the permits are pulled to decide when housing is actually happening. We make approvals all the time, master plan, preliminary plan. And so I was curious if this was like, do you expect this to be, the building permits to be pulled before January 1st of 26 or after, just because of the way the state calculates when we're meeting housing goals? Just curious.
Pretty comfortable suggesting it will be in calendar year 2025, or the 4 people that are here won't be with Brady Sullivan, including me. So,
all right.
no,
I was like I said, I was just curious.
Mr. Brady is anxious to get this going.
But believe me, I'm not going to condition it on when you build your building permits.
Right.
You know what I mean?
No, I understand.
The last question just gets into the state policy stuff, and if you can't answer it, that's okay, Mr. Murray. But I know that this project is not going to have any affordable housing units in it. I understand that. It's not a condition that the city council put in the zoning ordinance. But my curiosity to you is, what is the what would have been the difficulty of doing affordable housing with this project in general, so I can understand it? Is it the cost issue?
I think from the beginning of this project, at the site visit in 2021, a member of the city council raised that topic with Brady Sullivan representatives. In all the mill redevelopments they've done in Rhode Island, there's 7 or 8 of them. And affordable housing, or an affordable housing component, is just not part of their portfolio.
Okay.
They understand the need for affordable housing. It's just not part of their business model. And if it was, they would offer it up and they'd be more receptive to it. But we were very clear from the beginning that if the city shouldn't encourage this project, if they were going to insist on affordable housing. So we tried to do that respectfully. That is not to say that the development of 100 units of apartments at this site are not going to be a welcomed addition to the housing community. They will be, I guess the term is market rate, but Brady Sullivan knows their clientele, what they're expecting, who's going to be looking to live in these apartments. They're going to be priced to be occupied. So, so it's just part of their business model. Just doesn't include an affordable housing component.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Do any of my fellow commissioners have any follow-up questions or questions for Mr. Murray and the applicant? Commissioner Lanfear.
Chairman. First question, just out of curiosity, is this working? Just out of curiosity? No? It is, thank you. The building that was found to be structurally unsound and is being demolished, can you just tell us what is going to be on that property, that area, once it's demolished?
It's going to be part of the open space landscaped area, which, it will provide an area for additional flood storage, but it will be blended into the landscape of the property. There will be no structures. There may be some, amenities, but not, there will be no structure.
Thank you. And the other question I had, I cannot recall time-wise, but I know that the project that is across the street and south of this, I think Knight's Corner, is that correct? Was proposed and approved very close to the same time that this one. When the traffic study was done, did it at any point take into account the additional traffic that might or might not come into play from that development?
The answer is yes. At the master plan level, one of the things Mr. Pizzullo and the staff at the time directed our consultant and the peer review consultant to make certain the 156 units that were proposed across the street for Knight's Corner was incorporated into the traffic analysis. So the Knight's Corner traffic consultant was Paul Bannon. I'm obviously familiar because I'm also involved in that project. When Mr. Bannon did the traffic study for Knight's Corner, he obviously had the benefit of the documentation from Vanas and PAR from the print work. So it was an integrated approach for the traffic.
Thank you. I could not recall that off the top of my head, so I appreciate you refreshing my recollection. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for the applicant or Mr. Murray? Okay, seeing none, and you have no other further witnesses to present at this time, Mr. Murray, correct?
No, we're available for questions. I do have a closing, but perhaps you want to listen from the staff at this point, or?
Yes. Mr. Bergman, why don't you present the staff recommendation, report and recommendation on this matter at this time?
Okay, I will try to avoid, one second. Okay, I'll try to avoid repeating as much information as I can. Yes, so brief overview. Commercial industrial property has been used since the early 1800s. As we spoke about, many of the mill buildings have been demolished. Master plan approval was in April of 2023, followed by approved ordinance, which created the M1 conditional zone. Most of the significant planning analysis was done during the master plan and ordinance recommendations. So this will mostly focus on the new information that has come with the preliminary plan. So that's more like the environmental side, landscaping, and a little bit about the traffic as well. In that time, between then and the DPRC approval, which was in February of 2025, found that building C was needs to be demolished, which was also going to impact the property, as we talked about. And then Plan Commission granted a 1-year extension in March. Aerial view of the property, or obliques, which I may return to. Zoning map, which outlines the special condition of the M1 and the special redevelopment area for the future land use map. Site preparation plan and the proposed plan. Most of this already discussed, but I can highlight here at least that this is, I know this was a question earlier, Building C, 1 second. Here we go. Building C is where this area is located. So proposal, as you can see, is landscaping the walkway that connects to the parking lot to the building up here. And just also quick to note, the residential density of this, just of the project itself, is even lower now, as it just, if you're taking the entire property into account, it's 2.37 units per acre. And you're counting just for the upland area, it's 5.6 units per acre, which, most of the surrounding areas, their density is, 10.89 and below for the future land use map. So this is, well below that density, well within what's surrounding it. Yeah, as traffic impact, that has already been discussed a bit. There are the traffic impact and access study provided 2 recommendations. So most of the recommendations of the traffic study were already in the plan, but there were 2 recommendations that I noticed that were not in the plan. One of them was the recommendations to put stop signs and painted stop bars along all the exits for the property. As we can see here, it's not, I didn't see it on the plan. I'm sure that probably would have been added, but that's something that I would recommend a condition. That should be in the final plan. And the second thing was, the landscaping should be designed so it does not restrict lines of sight. There was a concern here. As you can see, these trees may interact with sight lines. As mentioned previously before, there may also be issues with the tree location and the power lines that are right adjacent to this, which I'll talk about a little later. So that's something that I'd like to see addressed as well. And additionally, at the corner of Cranston and Dyer, I don't have an image of it, but we don't have any exact analysis, but we'd at least have confirmation from that the proposed landscaping there, actually probably, which is at this corner, that the landscaping here doesn't potentially affect the intersection. We're hoping not. We just want confirmation from the developer that there won't be an issue there. And something that was also mentioned in the traffic impact and access study was the fact that in the study was mentioned the developer was going to propose both indoor and outdoor storage for bicycles. But the indoor one is in the plan, but there was no outdoor racks that were proposed that I saw on the plan. So that would also be something that I recommend to condition on this plan, along with the other 2. This was also already mentioned because there's fewer units. We're predicting even less traffic and impact on the traffic than was originally in the traffic study. Also, a quick mention that both Department of Public Works and the Fire Department reviewed the plan, determined that it provide adequate access and circulation for both private vehicles and emergency services on the site. Moving on to landscaping. Probably shouldn't repeat this. There's certain areas, and I have an image here where you can see this is something that wasn't really taken into account, was that these are 3 phases, which means there's 3 power lines. And what didn't seem to have been fully taken into account, and something that isn't quite seen if you're just looking at the site plans, is that the arm over here, it protrudes a bit more into the, bit further out towards the site than you would see on the plan, and that does affect the location, like the types of trees you plant and the location of them. So especially because what was recommended near these power lines was both red maples and in one location also pin oak. They grow over 25 feet, and they do pin oaks not as much, but red maples can grow out quite a bit, especially with the spacing. So proposed would be to either set them back a bit to the point where they won't interfere with the power lines, or choosing a different species that grows less than 25 feet tall. So yeah, this was the access to Dyer Street. This was one of the concerning locations, and then south, this corner of Cranston Street and Dyer Avenue. These four are red maples, and the pin oak right here. These are also other maples, these two right there. Those are kind of the concerning trees. Just looking at the site plan is kind of tough to say, what the impact would be, but typically if a tree is within 20 feet of a power line, you want to make sure that you have a relatively short growing tree so that doesn't impact them. So trees that grow under 25 feet. That said, there's some trees up here along Cranston Street. We don't predict that those will have any significant impact because, again, this is something that's not reflected on the site plan, but if you go there in person, the power line actually crosses the street right here. So these hopefully shouldn't affect the power line, and those species are fine. It's just the ones down here by Dyer Ave that need to be addressed. Yeah, most of this was also already mentioned. This is an historically industrially used property, so there has been, according to the report, some soil contamination, but that's actively being addressed by the applicant under supervision of RIDEM. And stormwater was also talked about already, so I'm not going to repeat myself on that. And I also reviewed the consistency with the ordinance passed in 2023, and all the conditions are met, the exception being the signage, but it's because signage is not going to be reviewed by the planning department. That's going to be reviewed by the building department after this approval process. Permissible uses are in line. The density is significantly less than permitted, and all of the dimensional regulations are met. You can see here, and plenty of off-street parking has been proposed for the site. For the findings of fact, for fact one, proposals consistent with comprehensive plan future land use map designation of special redevelopment district. Proposals consistent with the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan. For two, the proposals consistent with the zoning ordinance. Three, while this findings pertain to the final plan submission, no significant environmental impacts are anticipated. Proposal will be subject to all state and local regulations pertaining to environmental impacts, wetlands, and erosion control. RIDEM's natural heritage map shows that there's no non-marine species on the site. 4, proposal will not result in the creation of individual lots, such as physical constraints to development of building on those lots according to pertinent regulations and building standards would be impractical. The design and location of building lots, utilities, drainage, and other improvements will conform to local regulations for mitigation of flooding and soil erosion. And for 5, proposal will have adequate and permanent physical access to public city streets, just Dyer Avenue and Cranston Street. The recommendation, staff finds this proposal generally consistent with the comprehensive plan, the zoning ordinance, and stands with the required findings of facts set forth in Rhode Island General Law 452360 and Section 3L of the subdivision and land development regulations. And the ordinance 2023-6 as well. Staff therefore recommend that the City Plan Commission adopt the findings of fact documented above and approve the preliminary plan of this major land development subject to conditions below. One, all remaining outside approvals from relevant state and local agencies shall be provided. Two, remaining comments provided by Veolia Water for the proposed sewer service shall be addressed. That was in the Veolia Water sewer approval. Forgot to mention it earlier. There was just a handful of comments that needed to be addressed prior to final approval. Three, driveways should be placed under stop sign control with a painted stop bar included. Four, alternative arrangement or alternative species shall be proposed for tree plantings along Cranston Street and Dyer Ave as to avoid interfering with overhead power lines. Five, stationary outdoor bicycle racks shall be provided in a well-lit area near residential entrances of buildings A, B, and D. Bicycle rack style should be inverted U, post and ring, or equivalent or functional equivalent.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bergman. Any of my fellow commissioners have any questions for the staff at this time? Okay, at this time, we'll take public comment. Mr. Lima, is there anybody, first I'll start. Is anybody in the room here to make public comment on the Printworks? Seeing none. Mr. Lima, is there anybody online that wishes to make public comment on the Printworks?
There is no public comment.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Murray, at this point, do you want to come forward and give your closing argument?
Thank you. Very quickly, first of all, I want to thank the commission for your interest and support of this project. Certainly want to again thank the staff for working with the development team to advance this project this evening. Josh did highlight the findings that you're required to make under 452360 of the general laws. I believe what's before you this evening meets that criteria and would be in order for approval. I just want to take a moment to respectfully comment on the conditions that were suggested by the staff. First, for items 1, 2, 3, and 4, we have no comment or objection. The only one that I want to take a moment just to discuss the appropriateness, whether or not this should be an appropriate condition of this approval. It gets into, pretty specific detail of an item that I think the developer should have some flexibility on. Bike racks, bike storage is an amenity that you will find in most of Brady Sullivan's, probably in all of their Rhode Island mill redevelopments. They happen to attract a clientele that, some young professionals, biking, particularly in those projects that are closer to waterways and bike paths. They do provide an amenity for bike storage. In my conversation yesterday, it was revealed that one of the things when people move out is a lot of times they leave their bike. And so the developer has at all their locations constantly have to do bike audits just because they have these bikes on the property and they need to identify who they belong to if they're still tenants. But just it just struck me on the, and I don't want to overblow this, but the level of detail that is suggested here in terms of where they should be, I don't know what well-lit area means. And then when you get into the specifics of the type of bike racks, with all due respect to Jonas, and the staff, some of these things are like, should the commission really be commenting on what color lawn furniture we put out in the common area? Should we be, should there be umbrellas? Should there be swings? Should there be top equipment? I would just suggest that particular condition, I have no problem with it being encouraged, recommended. I just think for a project this size and the commitment that the developer's making, there should be a little confidence that they'll do it right. And but if the commission feels strongly that should be a condition, we'll accept that. But I just wanted to take a moment to comment on it without derailing what I hope will be a very positive approval tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. To follow up on your comment. Are you suggesting, so I can understand the terms of debate, that that condition be either A, eliminated in its entirety, or B, modified? If modified, what would be your suggestion? Like, I just
Sure.
make bikes available, period? I don't know what the.
Just, and I don't know whether it should be in the condition or somewhere else, but, you know, we have no problem with encouraging consideration of outside bike racks or bike storage. I just thought it was one step too far to mandate it as a condition, because then we get into a debate later on about compliance with the condition. You know, have we put the bike racks where they're supposed to be? Is the area well lit? Are they the proper types of bike racks that are suggested here? I know they put the functional equivalent in the, I just thought it just was, it was a little more micromanagement than I thought I've seen this commission get involved in on some projects, but I have no problem with encouraging it as opposed to mandating it.
Okay. Mr. Bergman, you have anything you want to say in response to?
Hold on. If you're encouraging it, it's not a condition.
I know that.
Okay.
When I was going to say, I was trying to give the staff a chance to respond, and then I was going to say, like, encourage doesn't need to be a condition, and then we can talk about the merits of mandates about bicycles. But anyway, does the staff have anything they want to respond to, Mr. The applicant's, it appears to be suggestion that this not be a condition?
So this is not an unusual type of request for a development of this scale. Certainly seen bicycle racks required, something you would expect in a high quality suburban community.
Okay.
But
Okay.
The reason I laid out with a bit more detail is specifically because we don't necessarily have any specific guidelines that about this. Honestly, I was a bit shocked there was some pushback on this because maybe it's just me, but I assume that would be kind of natural to assume that you would want to put these racks near a well-lit area near the residential portion. It's most likely that the residences would be the ones using it, and the well-lit area is to, you know, reduce chances of like theft or tampering with the bicycles. And the reason I specified these types, the inverted U and the post ring, I mean, for one, they're industry standards, but they're also provide the largest flexibility. They're pretty affordable, but they also provide the highest level of security for bicycles. I understand the argument, like, yes, it's one step too far. Maybe the developer should be the one, you know, making that decision, but I thought just providing some level of boundaries was helpful, but.
Yeah. So we can have a quick discussion here. We're probably at the stage now where we're going to have discussion and voting on things. Does any of my colleagues want to talk about the project in general? Well, probably we want to talk about this bicycle thing first. So anyone want to talk about the bicycle condition? Commissioner Renzulli?
Thank you. First of all, could I be marked present? I'm sorry for being late. Thank you.
We don't worry about that.
Okay. In my years on the city council and having listened to plans like this, I don't recall hearing that as a condition. I do think that it's kind of obvious if the people who are living there want to have bikes, they will see in advance if there's a place to put them. But it might be a little bit over regulation to say what kind of bike rack exactly it has to be. So I think that we don't want to really set a precedent in which we're over regulating developers and telling them exactly what they need to have where when it comes to this. But I think that if the people who live there bring bikes, then a bike rack will definitely appear, because that's just kind of how things work. When you need it, you get it. So that's what I have to say about that. Can I say something about something else as well?
Yeah, it's like a Senate filibuster. You can do whatever you want.
As far as the trees, do we typically recommend a kind of tree? That's another question that I'm not sure from the staff.
approvals like this do specify specific trees and locations.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any Vice Chairman Coop on the bikes?
Yes. I also was struck that the bike rack specificity might be a little bit of micromanagement. And in my head, I was comparing it to the tree selection, and I'm much more familiar with mandating certain species or varieties of trees based on their size and shape and impacts they might have. I was also thinking about the fact that I manage some property that is quite different from what's being proposed here. And we do have these bike racks available, even at those properties. And we have debates about whether they are in well-lit areas. And I just think it's too much specificity to put in as a requirement. I think the area they're in is perfectly well-lit. Others don't. And I wouldn't want to mandate that specificity and have it come up as an issue later on. So I do think it's a little bit micromanaging.
Anyone else have any comments about the bike issue? Okay. Now we can basically discuss the overall project, and then we can have a vote, and the vote, I assume, would be to approve, and people can make the motion with what conditions they want. I'll just start out by saying my own view overall of the project. There's very much a strong desire in this state for housing, and there's a strong policy coming for more housing. What I find is there's some people just want as much housing as anywhere you can put it. But what I like is housing that makes sense in the locations that we need it and can handle it. And what I find with this project, that it does make sense overall. 2.3 density per acre is compatible with the surrounding area of 10.89. Also, there's adequate parking here. The fiscal impact, this is based on the last time we were here, because it's a mix of commercial and residential, actually has a positive, small but positive net impact. Although it's in a floodplain, efforts have been made to reduce the runoff, so there'll be a net decrease. The impact even on the schools, I don't see it as particularly significant because there'll be a small number of people, children at this facility, and Gladstone is being expanded. The only concerns I had was with traffic because of the capacity issue. But as I recall from the last time we met on this and now, this is an issue that can probably be addressed by the city through traffic signalization. The issue of affordable, I do wish that this could have had an affordable component to it. I understand that the applicant has concerns about putting that, having an affordable component to this housing. And sometimes not all housing can be affordable. They have different kinds of housing for different kinds of income levels. There has to be some flexibility. So overall, I think it's a good project and I'll be voting for it. On the conditions, I tend to agree with my colleagues on the bike thing. I understand why the staff put this here. If there was a simple condition about that there'll be some sort of availability, some facility for the bikes, that'd be fine, but it's pretty specific. And so I'm okay with not having that as a condition. So that's my 2 cents on this. Is anyone else from the commission want to have anything to say before we make motions and all the other stuff? Okay. Seeing none, this would be the time for a motion. And then you have to specify, of course, if you're doing all the conditions or some of the conditions or what have you. And if staff could just put the thing back up on the board for the approval with conditions so we know what we're talking about. Commissioner Renzulli?
Would it be appropriate to the solicitor to first make a motion to remove condition 5 concerning the stationary outdoor bicycle racks as specified? That'd be to do now.
I think well, from way this is going, you might want to just make a motion to approve with conditions 1 through 4.
Okay,
It seems like that seems to
that's the
be
easier way to go. Okay.
a little bit
So
smoother
I will make
process.
a motion to approve with the recommended conditions 1 through 4.
Okay, is there a second to Commissioner Renzulli's, Commissioner Exeter? Is there any further discussion or debate? Seeing none. All those in favor of Commissioner Renzulli's motion to give preliminary plan approval with conditions 1 through 4, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed signify by saying nay. The ayes have it. Congratulations, Mr. Murray.
David Extra. Thank you, Ron.
You all set, Ron? You want to take a break or you ready to go? Okay.
No, he's
Alright.
done.
He's done? All right. Okay. Okay. Next,
I have the next matter.
oh, you have next matter? So you want us to take a recess?
No, if you just give me 2 minutes.
Okay, all right. All right, sorry for that short interlude. We will now go to the next thing on our agenda, the South Auburn replat. This is involving Dale Avenue. Mr. Boogerman, why don't you just give us a quick overview from the staff about what this is about?
All right, we have a minor subdivision reviewed under Unified Development Review for the South Auburn replat, record plat, lot numbers 235 through 238. Location at 14 Dill Avenue. It's an A6 zone, and the future land use map designation, single family residential, 7.26 to 3.64 units per acre. And the proposal is to subdivide the lot in half, resulting in the creation of two 4,750 square foot lots with 50 foot of frontage. On the proposed undeveloped lot, the project proposes the construction of a single family home. Variance are requested for a lot size and frontage for both lots, and side setback for the existing building. You can see the zoning map. You see the surrounding areas entirely A6, and also shares the same future land use map designation. Here's an aerial view, but here's the oblique. I think this one also shows how down Dale Avenue, you can see like pretty uniform lot sizes. It's a little more different over here on this side, or at least down Dale Avenue. You can see it's relatively uniform, which will come into play later. Here's the street view. Nicely see through this and the proposed plan how existing house is very much on one side, but as it is proposed, there is going to be a variance. 8 foot is required, or you can see there's 6 feet or 8 feet is usually required. And then there's going to also be a variance for lot size because it's 2 4,750 square foot lots, and then slightly smaller frontage. Before I get into the planning analysis, during a municipal review, the engineering division recommended that concrete curbing is going to be installed along Dale Avenue to, in his words, keep drainage in the street and avoid any potential erosion issues in the future, but do not recommend requiring sidewalks in that area because there's no sidewalks. The sidewalk network there is pretty insulated. And there's none on the opposite side of the street on the same side. Yes. Moving into the planning analysis, the neighborhood consistency, surrounding area of South Auburn is mostly single-family residences, which is in line with a handful of 2 and 3 family residences among those. Specifically within 400 feet, which is where most of my analysis comes from, there are 90 lots of single-family homes, and about 43% of those are on 40,750 square feet or less. If you just look at Dale Avenue itself, it is 80% of the single-family homes are on lot sizes of 4,750 square feet or less. And also the 50 foot of frontage is very common, very consistent along the entire stretch of Dale Avenue. In the neighborhood as a whole, the 50 foot frontage is very common. And it's also very in line. If you applied the sliding scale to this, 50 foot would be in line with that. And when it comes to, so very much consistent with the neighborhood. If you look at consistency with the comprehensive plan, so the future land use map, to discuss, it's the 726 to 34. And if you, again, account for the 400 foot radius around the home, and the density that one additional home would create with that lot size, it would really only increase the density of the area by 0.6%, really small amount. And the density of the area already exceeds the future land use map. And, you know, the proposal would really create a negligible increase to that density. And for the comprehensive plan, the I6 zoning district is appropriate. Yeah, basically the use of single family is appropriate for the district and the future comprehensive plan. So while the density of the proposal, so the use of the proposal is consistent with the future land use map and the comprehensive plan, the density is not consistent with the comprehensive plan. So well exceeds the area itself as well as the proposal itself, like already exceed the future land use map. And provided housing policy 5.2 in land use action LU 29, they state that zoning should match the existing neighborhoods and unit types, the underlying zoning, and therefore the future land use map. So the underlying zoning and therefore the future land use map designation, which is in line with the underlying zoning. So, you know, the upper echelon of that section of the future land use map says the 7.26 units per acre, which is about 1 unit per 6,000 square feet. Like, we find that does not accurately represent the existing neighborhood. And therefore believe it's conflict with the goals, policies, and actions of the comprehensive plan. So therefore, we think that the proposal is in line with the goals and actions of the comprehensive plan, which while the actual future land use map designation is not in line with those goals and actions. So there's that conflict. And I believe that these goals and policies and the actions do support this application. Going into the reason for the Unified Redevelopment Review, the goal of the project is to increase the housing investment in a desirable neighborhood in Cranston in a way that enhances the existing property and fits in with the surrounding area. Talking about the unique characteristics of the subject land. The house itself was like built off to the side, almost has to imply that like an additional unit could be built. And we do not know of any prior actions that the applicant would have taken that results in a hardship. The house itself was constructed in 1904. At some point, there were multiple lots, like many in the neighborhood, that were merged at some point, but we don't really know when. But the merger definitely predated this current owner. So the recommendation, staff finds the proposal generally consistent with the comprehensive plan, the zoning ordinance, and standards for required findings of facts set forth in Rhode Island General Law 45-2360 and Section 3L of the subdivision regulations. Staff therefore recommend that the City Plan Commission adopt the findings of fact documented above in the staff report and approve the preliminary plan of the subdivision. And recommended conditions of approval. The applicant shall install curbing along the frontage of the proposed lots, and the approval of the variance, and 2, the approval of the variance is conditioned on approval of the final plan of the minor subdivision.
All right, thank you, Mr. Boogman. Is the applicant here and wishes to be heard on this matter?
Yes, good evening again, Robert Murray for the record. With me this evening is Robert Moll, M-O-L-L, who is the applicant of the subject petition. He's available to answer any questions, but Jonas has done a nice job of outlining this application. Mr. Moll has entered into a purchase and sale agreement with the owner of this property at 14 Dale Avenue, Amir Katan. And if the necessary approvals are received this evening, he would then go forward to acquire half the existing lot, which presently is 9,500 square feet. The existing single-family house would remain on 4,750 square feet, and Mr. Moll would construct a single-family home on the remaining 4,750 square feet. In our application material, we submitted a narrative and a neighborhood analysis that I performed when Mr. Moll first came to me with this. Having done this for a few years, I look at these things and I say, I think that's doable. I think this is reasonable. I think it's appropriate. I think it's compatible. There's a variety of words I ascribe to some applications that come through my office. After I got into it even further and I really analyzed this neighborhood and I drove it and I looked exactly what was in the area, particularly on Dale Avenue, okay? And that's the one that I think we need to focus on is I can't explain why in all these years there was never a house built on the other 4,750 square feet. I've gone back, I've looked as far back as the 30s. I have a sense of what the ownership has done with this property, but the point being is is it appropriate this evening for the zoning, I'm sorry, the planning commission acting in a zoning capacity first and for the variances and then for the overall plan, is it worthy of approval? This commission sees many applications and typically a lot of them involve mixed uses in a neighborhood. You know, an applicant will come before you with, you know, looking for a single family house or a duplex in an area that's, you know, 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s. In this case, this applicant is seeking a single family house on an undersized lot, and we acknowledge that. But on the same side on Dale Avenue between Mapleton Street and Hopper Avenue, there are 28 single-family homes, all on 4,750 square feet or less. On the same side of Dale Avenue, all the houses are on 4,750 square feet. If we cross over to the other side of Dale Avenue, all those houses from 13 Dale Ave, the odd numbers, 13 Dale Avenue to 79 Dale Avenue, those are all on 4,500 square feet. So the development of this area predated the zoning. It predated the comprehensive plan. It predated. So what we have here is this commission willing to recognize that if this was, you know, 1954, it would have been perfectly acceptable to build a single family home on this lot. I grant you that it's undersized and, you know, in the A6 zone, 60 feet of frontage is required, but like every other lot, this lot would have 50 feet of frontage for the new house and 50 feet of frontage for the existing house. So why should we be approving this? We should be approving it because, and the chairman or the president had a very term of art, which I will go back and listen to earlier in the evening when you were describing the print works. But my way of saying is this house appropriate for the area? Is it compatible with the area? And should this commission be encouraging the development of houses like this on a so-called infill lot, if that's what we want to characterize it as? But this is not going to stick out, other than the fact that it's going to be new construction. It's going to blend into every single family house on a similar sized lot on Dale Avenue. Before I forget, I want to endorse the conditions of approval presented by the staff. We have no objection to those conditions. But the relief that's being sought this evening, you know, when you look at the standards, this is not, it is not out of character with the neighborhood. The present owner has done nothing to cause this situation. Mr. Katan has only owned this property since, bear with me, 2016. But at this point, there's an opportunity for the housing that could be presented for use in the community in an area that this would be consistent with. So there's no unique characteristics of this lot. It's in character with the general area, and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Is there any questions first from my colleagues to Mr. Murray about this application? But I'll have some. Okay. All right, Mr. Murray. This looks pretty straightforward in some ways. For me, it's, of course, I have my issues about certain legal requirements. So under the zoning law, you cannot create your own hardship. And I look at this case from 2001, I think it's called Sakia versus Caruso. I may mispronounce the name. But there, the court found that when you take a lot that conforms with zoning and you try to subdivide it and create two non-conforming lots, you've created your own hardship. So could you just address that for me?
Well, we're looking at the dimensional relief here. The standard is more than a mere inconvenience. Neither the owner or applicant has done nothing to trigger this hardship by previous action. The land has been there. These are 4 record lots of 2,025 square feet. We're looking to merge 2 of them together and leave the other 2 on the existing house. But if this board does not see fit to grant the needed relief, then obviously we can't proceed with the subdivision and the ultimate purchase and construction. But in this instance, the hardship that's going to be sought here is one that the standard is the minimal to the reasonable enjoyment of the permitted use to which the property is sought. So that would be my reply to your inquiry.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. My other line of inquiry is also of a legal nature. As you see, this is an A6 zone with a future land use map density that does not exceed 7.26. This will exceed this particular parcel when you subdivide it. My calculations is about 9.15, the parcel itself. I know the staff has a different way of calculating these things by looking at the entire neighborhood. In Monte Conti, there was a Superior Court case involving Cranston. The court upheld our ability to deny subdividing, someone putting a house on a lot because it was not consistent with the future land use map density. Where do you think, why should we not follow Monte Conti?
Respectfully, I believe you're referring to Montecatini.
Yeah,
Monte
I have a
Catini.
problem pronouncing names. People have problems pronouncing my name. It's just kind of a thing like
Not a
that.
problem. I only know that because I started the Montecatini case. I didn't finish the zoning appeal. Mr. Marcello is obviously familiar with it, but I was the initial attorney on the Montecatini Realty case, so I am familiar with that case. Mr. President, we have a situation, could you deny it on that basis? Yes, you could. There are, this commission has and can find, reasons or criteria not to approve something. I'd rather focus on the reasons why you should approve it. And that falls to 1, the opportunity for a new housing stock. 2, the clearly compatible with the area. And the staff is absolutely right that, we took this broad brush of this future land use map and overlaid all these densities on these, on half the city of Cranston was already developed. Okay. And I'm not saying that was wrong, whether, this commission just reaffirmed, a future land use map and density, and your predecessors have done the same thing. But because, we talked about micromanage earlier, it's very hard if you're looking at 30,000 parcels of land to pigeonhole each parcel with the appropriate land use density, recognizing the existing area or the existing conditions. So I think in this case, we should be looking at beyond the mathematical equation, we should be looking at, does this make sense? If you come to the conclusion this doesn't make sense, then you should not approve this. But everything that I've seen with this project and similar projects is it's compatible, It's in character with the area. It's just like every other house on the street, just about. And should the commission say, we can overcome that one issue and approve this, if that's the, if you're, it's kind of like you're a single voter issue. I only will vote if you support X. Okay. And if you don't support X, I like everything else you're for, but if you don't support X, I'm not voting for you. Well, in this case, I need people not to be single voter issues.
Pretty good, Mr. Murray, pretty good. Any other questions? Commissioner Renzulli?
Thank you. I think this is to the staff, but Mr. Murray might be able to answer as well. Are there several other identifiable parcels of land in this area in which this situation also exists, and which approving this would have some kind of a domino effect? Or is this kind of a one-off that makes, perfect common sense, and it's not going to just cause many more of these to occur?
I honestly don't know the exact answer to that question. I didn't do that analysis. I'm sure there might be a handful here and there. But I don't
makes
know
it
the
different to me.
exact extent to that.
Okay. From looking at whatever you had up, nothing else popped out at me, but that one really popped out.
Exactly. Dale Avenue in this area is largely built out. But we do see similar questions like this where older neighborhoods were developed long before the zoning, and someone comes in with a question about a potential
we
infill
do?
lot. So in that sense, yes, it's a very common kind of,
Common question, but not
Kind of
necessarily
question, but
in this right here,
it's-
where it's going to happen on every street following this, if we approve this. Because I think it makes sense to me that 20, actually, I was kind of shocked to see that 28 of 35 of the other houses on this street already are on lots consistent with what's being proposed. I know that was before we had the zoning law, but
Yeah, and this is a little unique because a lot of the laws that have passed have kind of allowed this by right, or the building official to do it. And in my opinion, it wouldn't create a domino effect because these are platted lots are a lot smaller. They're 2,500 square foot lots.
Okay.
Frankly, on the Montecatini case, I believe that applicant wanted to maximize a very small lot. So obviously, the picture, you can make your own judgment on the picture, but this is not where it's a 5,000 square foot platted lot in an A6 zone. This is very unique in the fact that the platted lots are 2,500 or a lot smaller. So that's why they're here for the relief.
Okay.
Again, it's up to you whether you want to grant the density bonus, but in my opinion, it's not going to create anything more that the current laws haven't already created as far as requests from the city, either from the building official or from this board.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Could I just supplement that?
Go ahead, Mr.
With
Murray.
just some brief information, and some of you may be aware of this, but in my analysis, I looked at there's 101 properties within the 400-foot radius. Okay. 90 of them are on single family lots. 90 of them are single family homes. 6 are 2-family, 2 are 3-family, and the tax assessor characterizes only 3 other lots within the 400 feet as it's called residential undeveloped. So this is not, so I don't want to say it's a one-off, but in response to Commissioner Renzulli's question, there is not I don't think that we're talking about a floodgate of other similar sized lots. Certainly not, I don't believe, on Dale Avenue, but even within the 400-foot radius, and that covers multiple streets in the area, there are only 3 characterized as residential undeveloped lots.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Murray.
One more question to Mr. Marcella. By state law, could they already put an accessory dwelling unit here without having to do any of this anyway?
Not necessarily, because in order to get an ADU, you got to meet 1 of 3 criteria. The first one is the lot needs to be over 20,000 square feet, which it's
Okay,
not.
So it's not, okay.
The second one would be, it has to be internal to the current dwelling. So I don't know what it doesn't look like it could be.
Okay.
And the third one would be, you can have if they had a garage, I mean, could they do it? And I'm not going to say on
I'll say it.
TV how they could do it, but it could be done. There's a method to do it. But right now, the way it's set up, you would not be able to get an ADU by right on this property.
Okay.
Mr. Murray?
Is that accurate, Bob?
Generally, but I think the answer is if the owner built a garage and completed it, got a certificate of completion, we could then come back and build an ADU on it without anybody having to approve it.
Yes, the bond's flat.
So-
Look, I
But
would.
we're
just-
not trying to do that here.
I would just say that I would prefer to see a single family home go there so that someone can, potentially own a starter home, a home for a young professional or whoever needs a home without having to create an ADU. And because it makes common sense and it's not going to cause, the floodgates to open based on how many lots are open in the area, I would be in favor of this. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments from my fellow commissioners before we go to public comment? Commissioner Lampier?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that first and foremost is the consideration of the requirement that the applicant cannot have created their own hardship. And when we talk about whether something looks like it's compatible with the neighborhood or is reasonable or may not have a domino effect, all of which I agree are often relevant considerations. When you have a legal standard, you have to first and foremost look at that legal standard. And the legal standard is that the applicant cannot create their own hardship. Currently, before this one lot is divided into two, there is no need to come and ask for dimensional relief or any other kind of relief. It is only after the applicant acts to have that property subdivided that that necessity, in their opinion, is required. And then they come and point out to us that, yes, they have a hardship. And yes, the statute tells us the standard by which we look at dimensional relief, as Mr. Murray told us. But we don't even get to that if we find that the applicant created their own hardship. And I think it is abundantly clear that that is the case here. But for subdividing that property, there is no hardship and there is no necessity to come to us for relief. So I think that is dispositive of what's before us. However, if the commissioners wish to look beyond that and we look to those other issues, I would point out that a couple of things. First of all, the density issue. I understand that the density is already exceeded. However, I think we have an obligation as commissioners to do our best to meet what is required by the future land use map and what is required by our comprehensive plan. And while I might agree in a case like this that if there was going to be a status quo in the density, even though it exceeds what is required by the land use map, it might be appropriate. But there is an increase in the density if this were to be granted. And our comprehensive plan points to the future land use map and the goals and policies of our comprehensive plan that pertain to residential development would not support this because the proposal increases the density of a neighborhood that already exceeds the density established by the comp plan in the future land use map. The increase of density in an area that does not meet the comp plan and the flume density is not protective of neighborhoods and is not protective or stabilizing for a neighborhood. So I would say that housing goal land use 6, which was cited by staff, that requires that we protect and stabilize existing residential neighborhoods, says that we preserve the existing density of an established neighborhood. This doesn't preserve the existing density, even though that density is higher. It clearly increases it. And while I agree it is a small amount, we have an obligation not to do that. And once we do that, we start down that road that the next time there's a request, I think as Commissioner Renzulli pointed out, might not be the case here, but it is the case in a lot of other matters that come before us. So I can't support this more for the legal issue, which I find to be clear and dispositive, but also because it does not comply with our future land use map or our comprehensive plan.
Thank you, Commissioner Lampier. Are there any other questions or comments before we go to public comment? Okay, seeing none. Is there anyone here who would like to make public comment on this application? Seeing none. Mr. Lima, is there anybody online that would like to make public comment on this application?
Count name Vanessa.
Please proceed, Vanessa.
Hi, I'm just a curious neighbor. I'm wondering if there's a lot of talk about that it's just that it's common, that it doesn't change the neighborhood very much. I'm curious about actually what type of house the plan is that Mr. Mall has. I assume it's going to be a 2-story house. Like, is it a raised ranch, a colonial?
Madam, could you state your full name and address for the record? That's a requirement.
My address is, my name is Vanessa Lampke Botheroyd, 11 Boxwood Avenue.
Boxwood Avenue, okay. What's this?
Intention would be to construct a 2-story small colonial on the site.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And do you also, do you have a timeline? If this goes through tonight and you get the approval, is there a timeline to start construction?
This is Attorney Murray. If it's approved tonight, we have to just submit for final approval with whatever conditions and that we have to comply with. And shortly thereafter, Mr. Mall would begin the building permit process. So if this is April 1st, assuming we have final approval by the end of April, hopefully we'd have a building permit sometime in May.
May, okay. Thank you very much. And just one last question. Are there any landscaping plans?
Again, Attorney Murray, there will be appropriate landscaping. Typically on projects like this, we're not required to submit a approved landscape plan from a landscape architect. There will be appropriate landscaping that will fit in with both the home to be constructed and the property. But, I don't have a list of species this evening.
Okay, thank you. I was just more curious about there's several large older trees surrounding the property. I was just curious if there's any plans to remove anything.
The applicant, Mr. Mall, is present, Vanessa, and his intention is to try and retain the existing substantial trees that are on the property that don't interfere with the construction of the house.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Mr. Lim, is there anyone else who'd like to make public comment on this project?
There is no other public comment online.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if there's no further questions for Mr. Murray or the applicant, we can have our discussion and a vote. I'll just start myself. This, when I look at these things, as Mr. Murray figures out, and by my questions, I look at some issues like density. So let me just address this for the record. The future land use map is 7.26 for this area. I understand that 7.26 does not reflect the existing density of that neighborhood. And therefore, if it does not reflect the existing density of the neighborhood, I then go look at whether or not what is the existing density of the neighborhood? I don't believe, and by the way, just to back up a second, I don't like using the word there's a conflict between the future land use map and our comprehensive plan. There's competing goals, but putting that aside. So then I look at the density of the existing neighborhood. My calculations is consistent with the staff's, it's 8.2. So this parcel would be subdividing this parcel would go above the density of the neighborhood, because if you subdivide this parcel and put two houses on it, it'd be about 9.17, which is the traditional way of calculating this. I do not ascribe very much to the theory of, it's 8.2, it goes to 8.5, because under that theory, any increase would lead, anything would always lead to an increase. You'd approve anything, a little here, a little there, and in the end, that's a whole lot. What gives me pause about the density issue here, however, is I did an examination like Mr. Murray. I looked at the documents, and 80% of the homes on this street is 4,750 square feet. And therefore, I don't see it as being incompatible with this neighborhood. In the Monte Conti case, the judge pointed out that what the applicant was requesting was there was no other examples of it in that neighborhood. Mr. Murray could obviously point to 80% on this neighborhood. There are a few lots in this area that are more than 9,000 square feet. There's about 4 or 5. It's 14 Dale Ave, 25 Dale Ave, 84, 87. I don't know if the house is situated in the middle of the lot or to the side. But regardless, it is overwhelmingly comparable. So if I do vote for this on the density basis, it would not be because it goes from 8.2 to 8.5. It would be because of the lots in this area are overwhelmingly compatible with the proposal. The hardship issue. Commissioner Lanfear is correct, and I generally agree with her about this hardship thing, and it gives me a lot of trouble. That's one of the problems of this UDR stuff is like having to deal with this hardship. To me, this is a conforming lot, and we're going to subdivide in a way that's not conforming. So I don't know if it's consistent with the Supreme Court precedent. I do know that, if you narrowly interpret applicant, then the applicant didn't do anything. I understand that. The other thing is I don't see any public opposition. I don't see anyone from the community opposing this. If this was going to be appealed, I think it would be a problem if somebody in the community didn't want it. But anyway, I'm struggling with this thing, trying to figure out, should I set precedent one way or another about this for myself? And we'll just go from there. Any other of my commissioners have anything else they want to add or talk about this? Vice Chairman Coop?
I will, I feel like it's deja vu again. We have the same conversation every time one of these comes up. And I struggle to wrap my head around what would be an acceptable reason to come in for a variance like this if the applicant was not subdividing a lot. That's always the case. And we always have the same conversation. And if we were to interpret it to say we can't do this, then why even listen to these? We'd be tying our own hands. And I feel the same way with the density issue. How many neighborhoods are already exceeding the density in the future land use map? If we have no flexibility at all, why do we hear these? Why don't we just look at the numbers and give the staff the authority to calculate the density and deny the application? So I do think we have to look at a little bit more flexibility than just, I struggle with the legal precedent. I understand. And I've been, as I've pointed out before, I've been reminded of the fact that some of the petitions we've heard could be problematic. But in a case like this, where clearly, if you do interpret applicant narrowly, you can find that if you don't approve this, then what could you approve?
Any other comments? Commissioner Lampier?
Legal counsel, if you feel we are going in the wrong direction in my statement that this is clearly an applicant creating their own hardship.
Well, I'm not going to answer if you're going in the wrong direction or not. I'll answer that as every application stands on its own. So no matter what you decide tonight, it has no impact on what could come before the board next month. With that said, I mean, there are legal standards and you have to decide whether the applicant has met the legal standards. But I'm not going to answer if you're going in the wrong.
Well,
Because if you ask that
shouldn't have
question,
asked it in that way.
I could go on
Is it your
for an
opinion
hour.
that
two.
this is, that the applicant has created their own hardship in this instance?
That's a finding of fact that you have to make.
Okay.
Okay, you just heard from 4 lawyers. We can't come up with a clear answer. All right, so,
That's why it's in front of the plan commission.
that's right. This would be the time, unless there's further discussion, if somebody wants to make some kind of motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, motion to approve, and I'll phrase it this way to make it all simple. It's to approve to follow staff's recommendation, approve it for purposes of the subdivision and also for the zoning
No,
variances.
we got to do the zoning first,
Okay.
and
all
it's
right.
2 votes.
Stu, you want 2 votes? Okay, so you're going to do the zoning, a motion to approve granting the zoning variances. Is that okay? Okay, that.
Motion to approve granting the zoning variance.
Okay, Commissioner Mazzulli makes a motion to approve grant zoning variance. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Coop. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. All those opposed signify by saying nay. Okay, we're going to do hands again. All those who are in favor of the motion, put your hand up. Okay, that's Renzulli, that's Commissioner Exter, that's Commissioner Barberi, that's Commissioner Coop. All those opposed signify by putting your hands up. Commissioner Mancini, Commissioner Lampier. My vote doesn't matter. Do I have to still vote?
Yes.
I'm going to go yes. Okay. All right, next motion. You want to make a motion, Commissioner Renzulli, to approve the subdivision? Is that how we phrase it?
Motion to approve the subdivision
Okay,
as recommended by the staff
With conditions.
with
with
condition.
the conditions.
Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Coop. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, all those opposed say nay. Okay. I think it's the same vote as last time. That's my interpretation, so the motion carries. We all set tonight, Mr. Murray? All right. Next on the agenda, we're almost out of here. City Planning Director's report.
I just want to thank you for appointing me planning director. Report that the Garden City grant application was submitted. We're also commencing a Cranston Community Forestry Technical Assistance Project will be kicking off on April 16th. So I'll be working on some analysis of the tree cover in our community. And we're still working hard as staff trying to make some progress on the comprehensive plan with community engagement. But I'm going to work as hard as I can to make sure that we are making progress on implementing our comprehensive plan, especially when we can bring in outside resources to make that work happen. For example, the Garden City grant and the Community Forestry Technical Assistant grant is also something that's provided at no cost to the city of Cranston. And as far as we've been working on some draft proposals to the zoning ordinance, and we'll bring those to you in the next month.
Okay. Yes, that's discussion of ordinance proposal. So I know there's some cleanup we have to do on the substandard lots of record and lots merger. I've spoken to the solicitor about that a little bit. I know the planning staff's looking at that, and also the issue of unified development fees.
So there's three things. One is a pure cleanup, which we're going to move forward. Beth's going to move forward with next month. The other two, if you can believe this, there's pending legislation to change what we would be changing anyway. So my suggestion is that we wait until June, until the session happens, so we don't have to change it in June and then change it again in July.
And which one in particular?
Substandard lots of record,
Okay.
the merger ordinance and the modification ordinance, where a
Okay.
building official can just go look at the neighborhood and grant a 30% modification without any notice to any neighbors.
Yeah, it's sorry about that. Yes, it is becoming one change of law after another, and you just sometimes I think, as we've discussed before, maybe the simplest thing we ever could do is just cite the zoning code and say what particular applicable state law is.
Yeah, so there are towns where on their checklist, they say cite either municipal ordinance or current state law, because the cities and towns can't change their ordinances fast enough.
Yeah. And planning director and the city solicitor will talk about this, about what's ready to go for May. And then what makes more sense just to wait until we figure out what the legislature is doing. Are there any other comments or discussion about this stuff? Okay. All right. There's nothing else, Director? All right. All right. If nobody else has anything to say that what's on the agenda, motion to adjourn would be appropriate at 8:31.
Motion to adjourn.
Made by Commissioner Renzulli, a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Mancini. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Ayes have it. Have a good evening. Thank you.